is Angie Murenga. You're watching Angie Monday. This is a place where we discuss all things governance, everything to do with governance, you know, governance of self, governance of others, governance of this nation, governance by the word of God. So today we want to review the year. Remember, we began the year and Dr. Teckla Muhoro and Nema Wamai came on, and we had a conversation about what God was speaking about the year. So they come from a group called the Company of Prophets. So we talked about what God was expecting this year, what he was talking to us about, and we just come to sort of review that year, because now review that prophetic word, because we're coming to the close of the year. So it's always important to evaluate and see what happened. Did the word come out? Did the word take place? And I'm just remembering in my spirit that first of all, we thank God that every year Reverend Teresa gives a word at the beginning of the year. And you know, there's a word she gave that has continuous. I mean, I think it's like 4 or 5 years ago, where I was in the service, and she gave a word of Isaiah 45 verse 1 to 3, and it has never left me. So it's not that the year comes to an end and we move on. Some of these things continue flowing into another year, into another space, because that word has carried us for a long time. And today I have three very able prophets, women, and 2 women and a man that I really recognize in terms of being very prophetic and being part of the Company of Prophets, which I discuss. So I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves, and then we're going to engage in a conversation.
Hello, my name is Maxi Eric Gitao. I am a believer. I love Christ as my personal Lord and Savior. And I happen to have started working in the gift of the prophetic, and I'm part of the Company of Prophets. And so in context of this particular shooting, it is a lot about the prophetic. I'm also in governance, and I work a lot with young people.
Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Dorcas Karanja. I'm grateful to be here, Prophet Angie. I'm also part of the Company of Prophets. I'm an executive assistant, I'm a trainer, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, welcome.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Rosalind Sarem, and I am so excited to be here. Pastor Angie actually led me to salvation.
I know.
In 2009.
The most spooky, dramatic day ever.
Exactly. So for me, sitting here is such a privilege, and just to see also the manifestation of the gift of the prophetic that Pastor Angie prophesied to me way back in 2009. So very glad to be here.
Wow. First of all, that's very encouraging, that there's a fulfillment of prophecy. Yeah, God is good.
Yeah.
There's a fulfillment of prophecy. I always remember the day you got born again. It was really, I mean, only God could have orchestrated those events, you know, and it was amazing. And therefore, actually, I not thought about that, but actually you are fruit and evidence that the prophetic is, you can stand here and say, I have evidence of the prophetic at work in my life, actually even more crazily, which I didn't know from Pastor Angie. So I'm very, very encouraged, definitely. So prophecy is a good thing. Maybe one of these days we'll come and just maybe expound on prophecy. So do you want to start by giving maybe a foundation of what the prophetic is? Who wants to go?
The prophetic is it's a grace, first of all, it's a grace. There's the office of the prophet, in which one of the 5 graces that have been granted to the church, called the apept, the apostolic, the prophetic, the evangelist, the teacher, and the pastor. So one of the offices is the office of the prophet, and then there's also the prophetic gracing, where you may not necessarily be a prophet by sitting in terms of office of the prophet, but you carry the prophetic gracing to be able to just share. It's simply just the ability to share what you hear God speak, and then also the prophetic gracing is also very intercessory, because when you hear God, you also speak back to God in regards to the people, and so you stand as an intercessor in between, and so basically it's just the ability to hear what God is saying and communicate that to the people, and also communicate back to God.
Sarah, this is their foundation.
A foundation. Just to say that all children of God really have a prophetic grace.
Yes.
Because the word says, my children hear my voice.
Yes.
So when we get saved, we do have the ability to hear God. But like Dorcas said, there are those who are called into the office of a prophet, who manifest that gift more consistently and are called to speak to different things, like speak to the nations, speak to spheres of influence, the seven nations, speak to different aspects, but just to encourage everyone that you actually have the grace to hear God, and you should cultivate that in prayer and being intimate with God.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, we all have access to God.
Yes.
Once Christ died, the curtain parted, and we got that very direct access. So it's everyone, regardless. But the thing about the prophetic is that God does not do anything to his people unless he first reveals it to his prophets.
Yes.
So the prophet being referenced here is the one who is now walking in the gift and who has been appointed as a prophet and as a seer, as someone who is hearing God over a particular domain. That domain could be a family setup, it could be a geographical setup, it could be an occupational setup, it could be a marketplace setup. God will not do anything unless he first reveals it to his prophets.
Yes. And it says that in the book of Amos, yeah?
Yes.
It says that he must reveal it to his prophets, and then therefore it can begin to manifest, just the order of things. And the scripture that where the offices are given is in Ephesians 4, I think verse 11 to 16, is where Jesus Christ said that, you know, he's giving these gifts and graces for the church, to build up the church, to build it in unity, and to cause it to become united, you know, and to grow as a united body and a united front. So that's why we need the prophetic, you know. And then for the prophetic, I think the only thing I'd like to say at the beginning is there has to be results.
Yeah.
There has to be fruit. And that's why that's why we're here today, to see that word which the company of prophets released as a group in January. We're heading to October, November. What has happened with that prophetic word, you know? And it's a governance thing, because once the prophetic word is spoken, then it governs the things and issues that happen in the nation when we align to it. So who wants to start? So Dorcas, you're the one who has thank you first of all, Dr. Teckla Muhoro, for putting it all together. You know, you and her had the company of prophets with George as well, but you know, she put it all together, put this document, reviewed it, so we really thank you. So we're going to use the document to then guide our conversations.
So the first point was that 2018 was a year of action, timing and movement. For 2018, it's lights, camera, action. 2018 is and was the year of action. So there was a sense that we are on the cusp of something, that 2018 would be a time for setting free of long-held captives, a time for rejuvenation of dreams long forgotten, a time for being propelled into destiny, a time to move. Certainly not the time to give up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who was to speak into that from what we have seen?
Amazing how action is for me the key word that stands out there. And action in this case is us collaborating with God.
Yes.
You know, it's not actually bring about the manifestation of any and every prophetic gift. There's got to be what I do. You don't just receive the word, the prophetic word.
I might prostrate you. I'm so glad you started there, because so many people receive the word and just wait for it to happen.
Yeah. So it's action time. Action time means, okay, God has sent forth His word. What do I do about it? I pray, and I of course don't manipulate it to work, but I listen to Him. When I see He moves, I move. Everywhere He moves. So that connection, that action for me, really, I have seen it in different ways, in different areas in my life, in the space that we share together as the Josephs. There's been a lot of action. People have in this country, there's been a lot of action, from the handshake to the to different other things. There's to the economy being shaken, but also the wealth of the nations coming through action. The saints getting the wealth of the nations to work for them in amazing ways. So action really is a word that has been fulfilled.
As you were speaking about action, the one thing that really spoke to me, I felt in my spirit, is, you see, like when you have an athlete, the two of them who came to mind, you know, like maybe like Usain Bolt, Serena Williams, even Tiger Woods, you know, these are all athletes. They have a gift that God has given them. But they can't sit there and say the gift must work. No, they practice, they grow muscles. The kind of workouts they do, the diets, there's a lot of action that has gone in to cause this gift to express itself. That's the same thing with the prophetic. It's like God has given you a gift. He has spoken. Yes? Now you need to get into action, which is what you were saying, like prayer. For us, it's prayer, praise, getting to know God, because that's what's building the capacity to begin to walk in the fullness of this prophetic gift, you know. And also, even, I mean, we're always encouraging people to engage in skills, you know, in mastery, going to school, because there's a gift that God has given you, but that gift needs the added skills. It needs what the world needs in order for you to be able to execute it, to probably get into a place of influence. So that's the action part that is required. So there's no prophetic word without your action part. Yes. Yeah. So right. So let's go next.
Yes, I'll go. I like what you said, Pastor Angie, about the practical application. Or once you get a prophetic word, there's an action, which could be prayer, but I like what you said about acquiring a skill, that sort of thing. Because the church has had a tendency to just get stuck in the prayer mode.
Yes.
So you receive a word and you keep declaring and you do warfare with it.
But now, movement. To
do the practical thing, like you've been told you're going to open a business, for instance. But have you done research? Do you know what it takes to run that business? Have you talked to people? Have you been in spaces where you can meet people you can interact with? So I just saw this year, I saw a lot of, and I had to apply it to myself as well. I saw a lot of people moving from just prayer and now going to do stuff. And when there's a lot of testimonies about now when you go and do, how God backs you up very powerfully. So that we are not, you know how the word says, you have been on this mountain for too long.
Yes.
So you might actually be in a situation where you're encamped around a mountain, but all it requires is for you to now move practically and do the next thing.
And even in line with that word, for me what comes to mind is when you say action, timing, movement, is the red, amber, green. It's like God releases a word, and then he says, this is what I want, this is what I've called you to do, this is what I want you to do. So people have been carrying a word around that long time. Maybe you know, God has called me to start, like we've seen several people, even within our
Joseph space,
within the Joseph space and community, but the things that they've been carrying. So they've been ideas that they've had for a while. They know I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do that forum, I'm supposed to start coaching. And then for this year, we've seen that this word has come alive because the green, when the action timing movement, the lights turned green, they turned go. So they got the go ahead to now start doing the things that God has placed in their hearts.
And you see on the action thing, when you were saying it, I'm thinking action, lights, camera, action, because the action is not going to be done in hiding. You know, there's going to be lights, there's going to be cameras, it's going to be in the public, you know, things are going to happen that are going to be captured that are in the public. So I think that has really definitely come out, you know, when we think of the political front, the business front, the corruption front. I mean, things happen that everybody saw, you know, like action, lights and camera, you know, I can see it happening, you know. It's not being done in hiding. God has illuminated, actually that's the word that kept coming, was illuminate, you know. So even he illuminates the word, he illuminates revelation, and he's actually illuminating the reality of the word coming to pass. Is there any practical, or not practical, anything else you can say about action that you've seen? Camera, lights and action.
I think in that context, the one thing I see in the nation is the handshake, the famous handshake. I mean, we came from a place where this country was going down. But somehow God orchestrated that the two leaders, the two leaders of the biggest parties in the country, the one in power and the opposition, come together and a handshake. And since then, there's been a clear agenda. And a lot more peace has prevailed, and that is as a result of a lot of prayer, but also a lot of prophetic word that had gone before that, saying that Kenya shall be a stable country. Through Kenya shall emerge many things. So that's a very, very clear one. I think that isn't so far, and that on an Angie Monday like this is relatable.
I think for me another one was when we started Mwenyechi Monday. I can't remember exactly when we started it, but when we started it, is that it was Prison Break Kenya, 2018, and for me, I feel the action it's been illuminated, but Kenya is breaking free, you know, of the chains that have held her back, you know. We never thought that corruption would be exposed at that level. I know there's a lot more still to be done, but there was action taken, and it was not taken behind closed doors, and we can see the light. We can see that Kenya is actually breaking free from that mold of not saying anything, you know, instead of letting sleeping dogs lie. Now there was something that was happening. Yes.
Yeah, and also even in terms of, I feel also that there's been, you know, the way the breaking of a day, like you just see light, now there's light, you can see some light. So I feel that there's also been that there's very many things that have stood, maybe for a long time without changing, but now you can begin to see there's a turnaround starting to happen, you know, just the cusp of it. Yeah.
And I think when you're talking about that light and the breaking of day, is that then it allows people, even them, to take action. You know, they feel like, okay, now I can take my stand, I can stand, I can move forward. Because I think we were getting into a place where even the nation was feeling hopeless. And I think it brings a hopefulness, you know, like, okay, they're not just gonna let this country, you know, like disintegrate, or we're just still going to let the ones who are corrupt just get away with it. Because I think there's a time we thought, God, everybody who's corrupt is just getting away with this corruption. So I feel like the action that happened has given people light, like you say, illuminated, and broken like a new day. You know, sometimes when the dawn comes, it offers you hope. Yeah. So that.
You know, you mentioned prison break for Kenya, which is actually what Dorcas was, it's one of the points she was talking about in Action Time and Movement, and that captives will be set free. Yes, so I think we've seen a lot of that in the nation, aligning to this prophetic word, corruption being dealt with. And I know these are the beginnings of what we will see in this country, is that there's so many things being righted, if that's the right word. There's so many wrongs being corrected. So, for example, I just to give a situation that I was involved in, and there was someone whose land was being taken by someone else, and he did have a title deed, and because this is the space I operate in, so I was able to witness this. And we actually went to the Ministry of Lands and gave them the history of what was happening. And it was so refreshing to see the officers involved just say, no, something went wrong here, and we need to, and this is the rightful owner because he had his papers. For me, that was captives being set free, because this gentleman had even gone to court concerning this paperwork. So, and we've had a lot of stories even with Nyayo House, now that we need to get new passports as Kenyans. So there's a lot of stories of you don't need to give a bribe, don't need to wait for long. It's actually very efficient. So I think we are actually seeing the beginnings of captives being set free, even where we didn't know that we were captives to some of the systems.
Excellent, that's amazing. So that has been, we're going to do a series, so we're going to review each and every one of, at least we've bunched them into 4 groups, and we're going to review the word that was released by the Company of Prophets at the beginning of the year, and that was the first one, about action, about camera, lights and action, and we feel that we've seen that expression. You're watching Mwenyechi Monday. Remember all things governance, and remember it's Prison Break for Kenya 2018 and beyond. God bless. Say bye.
Bye.